Hello, YouTube divers. This is Water Dive 122, and I want to welcome you all back to another episode of Marching Band and Drum Corps Review. So we're going to continue the series where we rank some of my favorite drum corps shows in a 17-year time span. This time we are going to be taking a look at my second favorite drum corps in DCI, and that is Carolina Crown. So Carolina Crown is the most local drum corps to me. I know a lot of people personally who have marched in Crown before and who are currently marching with the corps. Most notably, one of my section leaders at Western Carolina University. You know who you are. Shout out to you. Yeah. So this corps has always been kind of a part of my drum corps fandom for that very reason. Though I like the Blue Devils a little bit more, obviously, but Crown is a close second. Unlike the Blue Devils, the Carolina Crown only has one championship, which I will address in this ranking. But they are the kings and queens of brass. They are the crown jewel of brass in the activity. Every single year, their horn line is super amazing. Definitely some of the cleanest ensemble brass work you will ever hear. Especially when Crown are at their best. Oh boy. But yeah, so we're going to rank all of their shows from 2008 to this year. Like in the Blue Devils videos, we're going to be going from 17 through 8 in this part, and then number 7 through number 1 in part 2. So let's get this party started. So coming in at number 17 is their 2010 show, A Second Chance. Now, admittedly, I probably picked a bad time to watch this because I was on a Benadryl after I got stung by a yellow jacket over at a landscaping job I was helping my father with. So my attention span was kind of next to none for this show. But even then, though, I don't really think the show is as memorable as some other Carolina Crown shows. Yeah, I didn't find it very engaging, and I thought the drum line, to no one's shock, was kind of on the weak side this year. I mean, Crown has kind of a reputation of not having strong percussion. It's honestly what's plagued them from being a dynasty over the years. Like, one of the main reasons why they're not a dynasty. But everything else in the show is pretty good. The front ensemble, actually, this year, shout out to the front ensemble. They were actually really strong in 2010. I really liked what they were doing there. The visuals were pretty good as well, and of course the brass. Spoiler alert, every entry I have on this list has brass as a strength, because Crown is just so good at brass that no matter what the year is, their horn line just always delivers. I don't know what they're feeding those hornline kids over in Crown, but yeah, but anywho. But yeah, overall, Second Chance. It got 4th place in 2010 with a score of 95.950. And my personal rating, I rated a 7.3 out of 10. I think it's a good show, but we're going to get into better shows as the list progresses. So number 17 is A Second Chance. So number 16 might be a little bit controversial to some Crown fans. We've got their 2018 show, Beast. I've actually heard a lot of people who are fans of Carolina Crown say that this is one of their favorite shows, if not their favorite. And for that reason, I feel like this show's a little bit overrated. But in 2018, it did place 4th with a score of 95.500. So at least there's that. It did... I don't remember who came in 3rd place that year. I think it was maybe the Bluecoats. But the Blue Devils and Santa Clara Vanguard made up the top 2 that season. But, yeah. But I think Beast is a very good show. My complaints with this show are mainly the uniforms. I think the uniforms are fine, but Crown just has so many great uniforms during this time span. Also, I feel like the drill is a little bit underwhelming. Now, Crown definitely has some complicated drill in a lot of their shows, but this show, I feel like they're kind of taking a Blue Devils approach in the drill department, kind of. Um, and then, of course, the percussion. Now, I will say the percussion does have some bright spots in the show. Like, I love the tribal drum section in the closing movement. And I love the snare features throughout here as well. But everything else just kind of feels a little bit mid. I mean, it's Crown percussion. What more do you want me to say? But strengths for the show. I do like the, well, obviously the brass, duh. Um, but the guard and choreography, specifically in the winds and at the very end, is very, very well executed, in my opinion. It's honestly what makes the show really shine. I but unfortunately, I don't think it's enough to save the show overall. But I do think it's significantly better than A Second Chance with a score of 7.7 out of 10 from me. So now we're going to move on to number 15. At number 15, this one really hurts me, admittedly, but at number 15, I've got their 2014 show, Out of This World. This was the season following their big championship win in 2013, and they got fifth this year with a score of 95.675. And I think a big reason why this show didn't really perform as well as Crown fans had envisioned is just mainly because of just how competitive 2014 was. Of course, the Blue Devils were on a record-breaking run. The Cadets and Bluecoats have been basically going at each other pretty much the entire season up until finals night. And then Crown was the reigning champion, and there are definitely some weaknesses to the show. For one thing, I don't think the show is very memorable. And what I mean by memorable is that it just doesn't really stick with me. It's not a show that I'm going to remember for years and years and years to come, even with multiple watches. I also feel the ending is a little bit lackluster. I think they've done better closers before. And the electronic audio, well, I will say it does fit into what this show is trying to do. There are just some places throughout the show where I just feel it's a little bit out of place. Mainly throughout the middle and ending parts. But the strengths of the show are fantastic. Of course, the brass, as always, this was the golden era of Crown brass, in my opinion. The drill, as complicated as it was, I thought they executed it pretty well. And the show design is pretty cool. And of course, I really like the uniforms they had this year as well. Those blue uniforms with those cyan pants and navy blue shakos. I really like that. I really like it when Crown wears blue, too. Maybe that's just the Blue Devil fan in me, but I don't know. Out of This World, though, I think it's a good show, and I really wanted to rank it higher, but I just think other shows are better, if I'm being totally honest. But I rated a 7.9 out of 10, the highest 7.9 out of 10 that I could possibly give it without going into an 8. This is a great show, warts and all. I like the show a lot. All right, so now we're moving on to number 14. At number 14, we got Finney from 2008. And yes, it is pronounced Finney. I did do my research. This was the breakthrough show for Carolina Crown, and it's a big reason why I wanted to start here, because this was a very historic show for Crown, because all the way up from their inauguration in 1990, all the way up to this point, Crown have always been kind of like a mid-drum corps to all of a sudden being a finalist contender from 1995 to pretty much onwards. Since 95, they've only not been into the finals once. But yeah, they were consistently a finals making corps, but they never really placed inside the top 5. And then Finney came along in 2008. They got 4th this year with a score of 96.800. And right away, there's already a lot to like about this show. Of course, the brass just kick-started amazingly here. This shows the glimpses of what Crown Brass would eventually become. I think the show is also very memorable, and I also think the choreography and the visuals are fantastic throughout this show. Then the weaknesses. I don't think the percussion was very strong. I think they've had better guard groups as well. This year's the 2008 guard wasn't terrible by any means. I just think that Crown has had better color guards over the years. And then drill execution. Again, this was in the era where Crown was just basically doing too much at the same time, and it's ultimately what plagues their final scores. That and the percussion. But yeah, overall, Finney, a fantastic show. I rated an 8 out of 10, a solid 8 out of 10. This is a very good show. And if you want to get into Carolina Crown, I highly recommend you start here. So yeah, with that said, Finney comes in here at number 14. And number 13 is the show that they're doing this season, The Doors of Perception. So this is the show that that one of my section leaders is marching this season. You know who you are. And believe it or not, I watched the Murfreesboro show, and he was actually on camera, holding one of those door props. So yeah, shout out to the people of Murfreesboro. But obviously with the 2026 DCI finals not being a thing yet, there's no final placement or final score. Those are still to be announced. But I like what I said in the previous ranking when I was talking about Zay from the Blue Devils. I think this show has a lot of potential. This has been a show that has been steadily increasing over the months, to the point where now it's placing in a lot of the placing on the podium rather of the competitions that it's being showcased in. And for example, at this Murfreesboro show, it placed third. It placed fourth rather, behind the tie of Blue Devils in Boston and the competition winners of the Blue Coats. And then at Nightbeat in Winston-Salem, Crown's home show performance, if you will, they placed third behind the Blue Devils and the Blue Coats. So there's that. I think that this show will get better and better as the season goes on. And who knows? Maybe in finals, it might just surpass the Blue Devils. Maybe. I don't know. Yeah, strengths with this show immediately. I do like the door props in this show a lot, and I love the ending with those big tarps. Speaking of which, the guard lights out this season. This is one of the best color guards that Crown has had in a good while, I would say. And then, of course, the brass. Need I say much else? I do really love the trumpet feature in this show. I love the Barry Youth feature in here. It's just Crown Brass. It's just Crown Brass. What more do you want me to say? But the weaknesses, this show does have some narration that, yes, it's important to the story, but I don't really know. Narration is kind of a mixed bag for me. Some cases it works, in some cases it doesn't work. And in my opinion, this is one of the shows where I don't really think it works throughout the entire run. I think that there are moments where the narration is needed and is successful. But I don't know, it just kind of gets under my skin. The percussion as well, mainly the drum line, not really the greatest. But then again, when it comes to Crown's percussion history, I think this is one of the stronger groups, if that makes sense. And then we have show design, which maybe I'll talk to my section leader about this show and kind of get more information from him, more dirt out of him, if you will. So maybe that'll be a thing, but who knows? But overall, Doors of Perception, I rated an 8 out of 10 so far, and I can't wait to see how this show performs in finals night. So now we are moving on to number 12. At number 12, I've got another post-COVID show. We're going back to 2024 with Promethean. Now this was a Crown show that I was expecting to have inside the top 10, if I'm being totally honest. I remember back in 2024, I loved this show. Especially that ending with that big torch prop, and the paper flames. Oh, that's so good. And the props are easily one of this show's biggest strengths. I think the ballad in this show is also really beautiful. Crown just has ridiculously emotional ballads throughout their shows. And then, of course, the brass. One more. Brass. Move on. And then the weaknesses, I think, are a little bit more eye-popping than in some of their shows in this era. I think the percussion is not as consistently good throughout the show, as per the usual, I guess. I thought the drill execution left something to be desired, and there was some musical dirtiness. Now, the brass was incredible, but I felt like they had some moments of fuzziness and balance issues within the ensemble, but it's really a nitpick at this point, because me trying to critique Carolina Crown brass is the equivalent of arguing with a brick wall, if I'm being totally honest. But yeah, the show did pretty well. It got 5th in 2024 with a score of 95.025, and I rated about an 8.1 out of 10. I think this is a very strong show. Not quite as good as I remembered it being, but then again, Crown just has so many other amazing shows, and we're going to get to them right now, so let's move on. So next up at number 11 is another very well-beloved darling, or at least to the Crown fans that I've spoken to, Beneath the Surface from 2019. This was another show that I was expecting to have inside of my top 10, but ultimately it ended up falling just outside of it. This show did pretty well in 2019. It got 4th this year with a score of 96.563. And it does have some stunning strengths. I love the show design here. I love the idea of using a angled front ensemble with the stage right behind them. It sort of reminds me of what Pride of the Mountains does with our shows, to an extent. I love the choreography here. I love the ballad in this show. This is one of Crown's best ballads. Probably one of the best ballads in the last decade, if I'm being totally honest. And then the brass. The brass. And then we move on to the weaknesses. I do like the choreography and the visuals, but overall, I don't really think the Guard was as strong as other seasons. The percussion as well. The front ensemble actually did really well, in my opinion, but drumline, the consistency, I mean, they have what it takes. They do have what it takes. It's just not consistently brought to the field, if that makes sense. And then the visual execution, in my opinion, mainly with the drill and some choreography movements, here and there, I felt had a little bit to be desired. Plus, I'm also not really the biggest fan of the uniforms that they had this year. These white uniforms and shakos with these weird lavender purple stripe patterns just doesn't really resonate with me. I think Crown has better uniforms. But overall, Beneath the Surface, I rated a solid 8.2 out of 10. I think this is a great show. Now we're moving on to number 10 with their 2009 show, The Grass is Always Greener. You want to talk about a historically significant show from Carolina Crown? This was the first show that they appeared on the podium. They got 2nd place this season, only behind the Blue Devils that season. Crown scored a very impressive 97.500. And the strengths here are fantastic. The brass, obviously, being one of the best brass lines Crown has ever had, and that's saying a lot. The drill execution, I felt, was also there. They're doing a lot of running around. They're doing a lot of complicated drill, and I thought they executed it pretty well. And the guard as well. Oh my goodness, the guard was fantastic in this show. But then the weaknesses. Once again, I don't really think the drum line was in their A game on this show. Um, the show design as well. I think this is kind of a confusing show to follow along with, if I'm being totally real. And then the show's biggest weakness are the uniforms. I'm sorry, but I am not a fan of Carolina Crown's cream uniforms. I don't know what it is. It just does not work for me. It just does not work. I think that their uniforms just progressively get even better throughout the years. But yeah, overall, grass is always greener. 8.4 out of 10. I think it's a solid show. Now we're moving on to number 9. We've got their 2023 show, The Round Table, Echoes of Camelot. This is a very interesting show, and sort of like with the Blue Devils cutouts from that same year, this was pretty much the show that got me into Carolina Crown. I remember those uniforms. You want to talk about a big uniform upgrade? Oh boy. This show probably has my favorite Carolina Crown uniforms. I just love those medieval hooded knights uniforms that they would wear. I mean, that they wore in this show. I just love that. The brass, of course, was incredible, and the choreography. This is a very heavy choreography-esque show, and I thought for the most part they did a really good job of executing it on finals night. Then we have the weaknesses. I think some visuals were a little bit out of place. Same thing with the drill. I thought the drill was not really executed very well, and when I say very well, I mean compared to other shows. And then drumline. Listen, this is one of the better Carolina Crown drum lines over the years. I think they're really tight in this show. They just, I don't know, they don't, it doesn't really do anything for me. Like, it's not a wow factor, if you know what I mean. But overall, this show is a solid 8.5 out of 10. I do like this show quite a lot. Now we're moving on to number 8. And the final show that we're going to be talking about in this video is 2025's The Point of No Return. This was the show they did last season, and it did do pretty well for itself. It got 5th this season with the score of 94,800. Their second consecutive 5th place finish behind Promethean, and their lowest drop probably since the return from COVID. I know they got 3rd in 2023 with a score of 97.667. No, 663 rather. But anyway, with The Point of No Return, I think there are some really strong elements of this show. Of course, the brass, duh. And the props are huge this season. By far the biggest props that Carolina Crown has probably ever had. And I love the character with the big crescent moon wand, with the red wardrobe, with the red robe and the long red cape coming up behind him, and the black face. Oh boy. It is like literally the Grim Reaper if I ever saw him. And speaking of which, that ending just gives me goosebumps every single time. I love the ending of this show. But then the weaknesses. The uniforms are good, but they're not quite, they don't really quite resonate with me. I mean, in a show where there's mostly red and black props, and then seeing Carolina Crown wear purple uniforms, I don't know. It's just, I've never been a big fan of a purple and red color scheme, so that's probably just a me thing. But yeah, just kind of an eyesore to look at some points. The drum line, again, one of the better Crown drum lines. but I feel like I'm just beating a dead horse at this point, so I'll move on. And then the guard. The guard is good. Guard is very, very nice, but they didn't wow me like they did in some previous shows. But overall, I feel comfortable giving The Point of No Return another solid 8.5 out of 10. And it's a good show. And this is another show where if you want to get into Carolina Crown, I highly recommend this show. But yeah, so that concludes part 1. Tune in for part 2. Thank you so much for watching, my fellow YouTube divers. This is WaterDive122 signing out, ready to dive into more fun on YouTube. Thanks for watching.